Hello, today we're going to explore a mysterious and chilling murder case that took place in Hong Kong. At exactly 11:15 a.m. on March 7, 2008, Hong Kong's emergency line 9999 received a disturbing phone call. On the other end of the line was a man speaking in an eerily calm voice. "I killed someone." His unnatural calmness stunned the dispatcher. They couldn't help but question him again. "Are you serious?" the man insisted. "Yes. I killed my ex-girlfriend." He then calmly gave his name and address, saying he would put down his weapon and fully cooperate with the police. A murderer voluntarily calling the police and confessing in such a composed manner, it was something the dispatch team had rarely seen. Although they found it hard to believe, the dispatcher immediately alerted the police. Officers armed with guns, shields, and accompanied by paramedics rushed to the scene. At the same moment, another emergency call came in. This time it was a young woman named Cheng Hu Yu. She said a man had just called her to confess he'd committed a murder. The address she gave was Unit 22206 Shek Ka House, Shek Lei Estate, Kwai Chung, New Territories. The dispatcher compared the two addresses and realized they matched exactly. A serious crime had indeed taken place. When police arrived at the apartment, everything seemed normal from the outside. No sounds, no signs of chaos. They knocked on the door and announced themselves. A blood-covered man calmly opened the door. He looked calm. After opening the door, he simply walked back to the living room and sat down on the sofa. From where he sat, police could see a horrifying scene. The entire living room wall's floor and furniture was splattered with blood. On the floor next to the sofa lay a female body covered with a windbreaker. From underneath, they could see the victim wearing a white shirt and dark jeans. What shocked them even more, lying between her left arm and waist, was a severed human head placed deliberately. According to the autopsy, the victim sustained numerous stab wounds, with several of them piercing vital organs. Forensic experts concluded that the victim was initially attacked while standing, then collapsed due to blood loss, ultimately succumbing to further injuries. The murder weapons were found at the scene: 2 knives, one large and one small, both covered in the victim's blood. The sheer cruelty and cold-blooded nature of the act sent chills down everyone's spine. Through the investigation, the victim was identified as Li Ruyi, 19 years old. The perpetrator was her ex-boyfriend Wu Jiming, 25 years old. According to criminologists, homicides usually stem from 3 primary motives: hatred, money, or love. In this case, it was a murder driven by love, or more accurately, a twisted form of love that used affection as an excuse for violence. As people often say, when you meet the right partner, 1 + 1 becomes greater than 2. But when it's the wrong person, the best-case scenario is heartbreak, and the worst could be death. So let's take a look at how the relationship between this couple unfolded, and what led to this heartbreaking tragedy. Li Ruyi was born in 1989. She was the youngest daughter in a family of 3 sisters. In 2000, her family moved into Shijia Building, the same place where the murder later occurred. After her eldest sister got married and moved out, the boyfriend of her second sister moved in to live with them. Li Ruyi had a natural talent for sports. In 2002, when she was in 9th grade, she was already a member of the school's swim team. She competed in school-level swimming competitions and took home awards. A year later, she became the swim team captain and won the championship in the women's 50-meter freestyle. She was known by many as the Flying Fish Girl. Besides swimming, Li Ruyi also excelled in cross-country running. She once represented her school in a district-wide competition and helped her team place 8th overall. In the eyes of her teachers and parents, Li Ruyi was a tremendous source of pride. After graduating from the natural sciences track in high school, Li Ruyi began studying club management. In March 2007, she was sent by her school to intern at a fitness club in Wing Ho Hao, where she also worked part-time as a swimming coach. It was at this very club that the energetic, bright young woman would encounter the nightmare of her life, Wu Jiming. Wu Jiming worked as an assistant at the club while attending school. Li Ruyi, with her outgoing and cheerful personality, quickly caught his attention. He not only guided and supported her enthusiastically at work, but also pursued her obsessively. Wu Jiming was born in Hong Kong and was 7 years older than Li Ruyi. His family also had 3 siblings. His parents had once worked in public relations in Macau, but were later imprisoned at Stanley Prison for robbery. When he was a child, his mother often took him to visit the prison, deceiving him by saying his father worked there. It wasn't until he got older and was mocked by classmates for being the son of a criminal that he realized his father was actually an inmate, not an employee. When he reached secondary school, Wu Jiming's father was released from prison and went to work in mainland China. Wu continued to live with his mother and siblings in Hong Kong. In 2003, amid these difficult circumstances, his mother was diagnosed with depression. After graduating from high school, Wu Jiming worked a variety of jobs, including warehouse worker, waiter, and club assistant. With a strong passion for sports, after obtaining his personal trainer certification, he continued with additional courses in Muay Thai and sports management. Perhaps because of their shared interests, Li Ruiyi also developed feelings for Wu Jiming. Not long after the two began dating. Just 1 month into their relationship, Li Ruiyi moved in with Wu. At first, their love was passionate. Wu doted on his girlfriend completely. He handed over his entire income to her, and even paid for her lifeguard training. At home, whenever Li acted playfully, Wu would even carry her into the bath in front of his mother. As for Li Ruiyi, she also showed her affection by knitting a scarf for her boyfriend. In reality, Wu had already been in relationships since high school. Li was his 4th girlfriend. He had ended the previous 3 relationships on his own terms. He even abandoned the last one simply because he met Li. According to those around them, Li Ruiyi was the girl he loved most deeply. However, despite sharing common interests, their personalities were entirely different. Li Ruiyi was outgoing, sociable, and had many male friends. In contrast, Wu Jiming was introverted, emotionally troubled, and had a possessive nature toward his girlfriend. 1 month after moving in together, Li Ruiyi made plans to hang out with a male friend. That night she called Wu and told him she would be out all night and wouldn't return home because she was going on a river cruise the next day. Wu was furious and urged her to come home, but she refused. In a fit of jealous rage, he did something reckless at home. His reckless act frightened Li Ruiyi, who rushed back and called emergency services to take him to the hospital. From that point on, Wu Jiming constantly feared losing his girlfriend. His control over her grew more and more intense. He frequently checked her phone and interrogated her about any suspicious calls or messages. Li Ruiyi became increasingly exhausted and frustrated. Sometimes she would deliberately flirt with other male friends via text to provoke Wu. Because of this, the two frequently argued. Their relationship continued to deteriorate amidst constant fighting. Time went by. On February 12, 2008, Li Ruiyi made plans to go sing karaoke with her female colleague Zheng Xiaoru. She assumed that since Zheng Xiaoru was also a woman, Wu Jiming wouldn't be too suspicious. However, some of Zheng Xiaoru's friends brought along other acquaintances, and that's how Li Ruiyi met a 25-year-old chef named Wen. The next day, Wu Jiming received a phone call from Zheng Xiaoru. She said she couldn't stay silent and warned Wu Jiming to be cautious as his girlfriend might be falling for someone else. Zheng Xiaoru even sent him Wen's phone number and told him to send a warning message. However, Wen didn't reply at all. So Wu Jiming turned his attention to interrogating his girlfriend. Li Ruiyi was extremely annoyed by this constant scrutiny and felt that he was interfering with her personal freedom. From then on, she began deliberately texting Wen more often. A week later, Wu Jiming became increasingly anxious and paranoid. He took the initiative to break up with Li Ruiyi. She agreed immediately without any hesitation. However, just 1 day later, Wu Jiming regretted his decision. He repeatedly apologized and begged her to come back, but Li Ruiyi was firm in ending the relationship. On February 20th, she moved back to her family's home. After returning to single life, Wen began actively pursuing her and the two quickly became a couple. On February 24th, Wu Jiming texted Li Ruiyi saying he wanted to do something reckless. She replied that she didn't want to see him spiral out of control and hoped he would come to his senses and stop bothering her. From 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. on February 25th, Wu Jiming repeatedly called Li Ruiyi 26 times in total, but most of the calls went straight to voicemail. Desperate and in emotional agony, he swallowed 100 painkillers in his room, then slashed the ligaments and nerves in his left arm. The next morning at 6 a.m., after regaining consciousness, he sliced into a vein in his left arm. Around noon, his mother and younger brother discovered him unlock the door with a spare key and rushed him to the hospital. Wu Jiming narrowly escaped death. During his 10-day hospital stay, he kept sending affectionate messages to Li Ruiyi. But she didn't respond, not once. She didn't even acknowledge his hospitalization. Fearing that her son might attempt suicide again, Wu Jiming's mother hid all sharp objects in the house. Because of his erratic behavior, Wu Jiming lost his job after being discharged. But he didn't seem to care. His only focus was winning back Li Ruiyi. His mother even called her, hoping she would agree to meet him, but Li Ruiyi refused. Even so, Li Ruiyi still tried to reason with him. She told him, "Don't do anything foolish. Doing this won't bring us back together. I'd rather see you kill someone else than see you hurt yourself. If you go to prison, at least your mom will know you're still alive. You care too much about winning or losing. I'm not going to get back with you anytime soon." But instead of calming him, her words only made Wu Jiming more dangerous. And tragically, Li Ruiyi didn't realize that her attempt to push him away was slowly putting her in greater danger. On March 5th, Wu Jiming resumed his classes in criminal psychology at the Hong Kong Institute of Vocational Education. After class, he sent 21 messages to Li Ruiyi. At first, they were sweet and affectionate, but as she continued to ignore him, he became impatient. His tone shifted from tender and caring to bitter and threatening. He blamed her for driving him into a corner and accused her of ending things just to move on. He then demanded that she repay all the money he had spent on her during their relationship. That evening, Wu Jiming went to the place where Li Ruiyi worked to wait for her to finish her shift. The two ended up in an argument. Wu Jiming not only demanded back the phone and house key he had given to Li Ruiyi, but also asked her to return the living expenses and pocket money he had spent during the time they lived together, a total of 12,000 Hong Kong dollars. Li Ruiyi gave him 3,000 Hong Kong dollars, all the cash she had on hand, and said she would gradually repay the remaining 9,000. Wu Jiming didn't press further. He thought it was fine this way. He would have more opportunities to see her again. After going home, Li Ruiyi told her second eldest sister and her sister's boyfriend everything that had happened. The sister's boyfriend later called Wu Jiming, asking him to stop bothering Li Ruiyi. He told Wu that when two people are in love, there's no need to calculate everything so precisely, and once they've broken up, they should go their separate ways. However, Wu Jiming refused to back down. He insisted on getting his money back and threatened, "I've already lost my hand and my life. What else do I have to be afraid of?" Hearing the threat in Wu Jiming's tone, the sister's boyfriend feared that he might act recklessly, so he brought Li Ruiyi to the police station to file a report. But the police believed it was merely a romantic dispute with low risk, so they only recorded the case without taking further action. On March 6th, Wu Jiming's attitude suddenly changed. He sent a text apologizing to Li Ruiyi, saying the time he spent with her was the happiest period of his life. Everything he had done was simply because he didn't want to lose her. He also expressed his hope that Li Ruiyi would be true to herself and remain friends with him. Li Ruiyi did not respond to these messages. That night, Wu Jiming went to a sporting goods store and bought a survival knife and a dagger. The following morning, he wrote a suicide note, included the contact number of his insurance company, and left 8,000 Hong Kong dollars, all his remaining money, in his room for his mother. Then, in one last hopeful gesture, he texted Li Ruiyi, "I can't lose you. Please don't treat me like this, okay?" But once again, he received no reply. At 8 a.m., with his left arm in a cast due to his previous suicide attempt, and his right arm wrapped in a protective bandage, Wu Jiming concealed the two knives on his body and showed up outside Li Ruiyi's apartment building. Half an hour later, Li Ruiyi's second eldest sister and her boyfriend left the house for work and happened to see him. They asked what he was doing there. Wu Jiming lied, saying he came to return some clothes. Li Ruiyi's sister was worried her younger sister might be harassed at home alone, So she told him that Li Ruiyi had already gone to work and offered to accept the clothes on her behalf, inviting him to take a taxi together. However, Wu Jiming declined. Only after watching the sister and her boyfriend get into the taxi did he enter the building. Still feeling uneasy, Li Ruiyi's second sister gave her a call to remind her to stay safe. Meanwhile, Wu Jiming had already arrived at the front of Li Ruiyi's house and was hiding outside waiting for her to leave for work. At 10:50 a.m., Li Ruiyi opened the door and was immediately pushed back inside by Wu Jiming, who had been waiting just outside. Once inside, Wu Jiming kept asking if Li Ruiyi still loved him and begged her once again to take him back. But Li Ruiyi firmly rejected him, saying that no one could love someone who was so quick to think irrationally, and told him that she already had a new boyfriend. Wu Jiming tried to hug Li Ruiyi, but she resisted fiercely and demanded that he leave the house, otherwise she would call the police. Taking advantage of the moment when Li Ruiyi turned her back, Wemin, in a fit of desperation, pulled out a knife and stabbed her. Even as she pleaded and begged for her life, he showed no sign of stopping. He had completely lost his mind. In the end, he kissed the severed head of the woman he once loved, a final twisted farewell. After committing the crime, Wu Jiming placed his suicide note and ID card in Li Ruiyi's room, intending to end his own life. But the words of his ex-girlfriend still echoed in his ears. Even if you have to go to prison, at least let your mother know that her son is still alive. So he abandoned the idea of taking his own life. Just then, Zheng Xiaoru called. Wu Jiming told her what had happened. Zheng Xiaoru thought he was joking and asked, "Do you know what the consequence of killing someone is?" Wu Jiming replied, "Being put in prison." At that moment, Zheng Xiaoru finally realized how serious the situation was. Wu Jiming asked her to call the police. After hanging up, Wu Jiming called the police himself. After that, he called his mother and said, "I did something wrong. Your legs aren't well, so don't move around too much." Then he stayed in the house waiting for the police to arrive. After being arrested, Wu Jiming confessed to all of his crimes. He stated that he wore a wrist support to strengthen his grip during the attack, and admitted that he had been planning the murder since March 6th. Wu Jiming believed that Li Ruiyi's words, "better to kill someone else than to do something foolish," were a veiled suggestion for him to kill her. On April 15th, 2009, the case was brought to trial at the High Court. Wu Jiming sat in the defendant's chair with an expressionless face. Before the trial began, through his lawyer, he admitted to manslaughter, claiming he had been suffering from a mental disorder at the time of the crime. However, based on the evidence, the prosecution argued that he only had an adjustment disorder with depressive moods, not a mental illness severe enough to impair his judgment during the crime. During the trial, Wu Jiming's lawyer argued that on March 7th, he did not go to Li Ruiyi's home with the intent to kill her, but only to scare her. If she refused to get back together, he planned to harm himself. However, during their conversation, Li Ruiyi insulted him, saying that he was a crippled, unemployed man who wasn't even a real man. Provoked by these words, he lost control of his emotions and ended up killing her. Regarding Wu Jiming's earlier confession to the police, the defense argued that he was in a state of deep despair at the time and deliberately claimed he had planned the murder in advance because he wanted to be charged with homicide. In reality, the reason he brought the knife with him was because it was his favorite item, something he wanted to take with him in death. When questioned by his lawyer, Wu Jiming testified that he pulled out the knife in front of Li Ruiyi, only to scare her, hoping that fear would make her agree to get back together with him. He admitted that this line of thinking was irrational, but at the time he didn't understand why such a thought even crossed his mind. Throughout the trial, he remained remarkably calm. When asked about the events of the day of the crime, he said he didn't want to recall what had happened. It was only when the court presented the two knives used in the attack that he finally lost control, breaking down in anguish and despair. The prosecution argued that the defendant's testimony was merely an attempt to shift all the blame onto the victim in order to protect himself. In the text messages Li Ruiyi had sent over the previous 2 weeks, there was no indication that she had ever insulted Wu Jiming. So why would she suddenly provoke and anger her ex-boyfriend, who was holding a knife on the day of the crime? That brutal behavior of Wu Jiming proved that he did not simply lose control in a moment of impulse. When working with the police, he remained calm and clear-headed, showing no signs of fear. He fully understood the officer's questions, contrary to his later claim that he didn't want to recall the events of the crime. Therefore, his initial statement was accurate and credible. On April 23rd, both the prosecution and the defense concluded their arguments. The next day, a jury consisting of 5 women and 2 men deliberated in private for 4 hours and unanimously found Wu Jiming guilty of murder. During sentencing, the judge condemned his cold-blooded behavior and the horrifying nature of the crime and sentenced him to life imprisonment. Both Wu Jiming's lawyer and his mother were shocked by the verdict. His mother, a woman in her 50s, had attended the trial every day. Even though her son was angry and told her not to be present for his defense testimony, she insisted, saying she wanted to be there to support him emotionally. This tragic love story ended in devastation. Wu Jiming's mother believed that although her son was at fault, matters of the heart couldn't always be judged with logic. Moreover, right after committing the crime, her son had immediately called her and admitted he had done something wrong. In her eyes, regardless of who was to blame, the tragedy had already happened, deeply wounding both families. No matter what, she vowed to appeal the verdict to the very end for her son. When asked about what to do with Li Ruiyi's belongings that were still in her home, Wu Jiming's mother said she would not throw them away, but would ask the victim's family whether they wanted to take them back. On April 28, 2010, Wu Jiming's appeal was rejected. The case was officially closed. Love is a natural part of life, but if you happen to fall for someone dangerously obsessed, what should you do to protect yourself after a breakup? Li Ruiyi tried her best to leave Wu Jiming, but still couldn't escape the tragedy. Perhaps the best way to protect ourselves is to pay close attention to warning signs before we even decide to begin a relationship. But if you've realized it too late and want to break up safely, it may be best to seek help from professionals, those who can assess the other person's personality and help find the safest way out. So what's the lesson to take away from this story? First and foremost, we must stay clear-headed and rational in love. Don't let emotions overpower your judgment. Don't turn a blind eye to warning signs. When you sense a relationship becoming toxic, have the courage to walk away and seek help from family, friends, or professionals. Second, learn to respect the other person's choice. A breakup is not the end of the world. Don't turn love into hatred. Don't let negative emotions drive you to reckless actions. Finally, always remember that loving yourself is the most important thing. Only when you know how to love and protect yourself can you build healthy and happy relationships. Hopefully the tragedy of Li Ruiyi and Wu Jiming will serve as a wake-up call for all of us. That concludes today's video. See you again in the next one. Goodbye.